Today we're going to be talking about what every single UFC fighter needs right now. What Tom Aspinall needs right now is for actual contenders to fight. He has a fight booked with Gane, but that's about it. After that Gane fight, what's next for Tom Aspinall? I feel like there's really nobody in the heavyweight division right now. The only other possible option is if Alex Pereira beats Ankalaev and moves up to fight Tom Aspinall. He could still move up to heavyweight if he lost to Ankalaev, but he would probably have to fight a contender first and then get a title shot against Tom Aspinall if he wins. After that, there's one more contenders fight between Volkov and Almeida. And let's be honest, that fight's really not that exciting. Not as exciting as an Alex Pereira super fight or the Jon Jones fight that was supposed to happen. Those are the only options. What Ilia Topuria needs the most right now is an actual tough test. We're in a time right now where Ilia Topuria has pretty much taken out every legend you can think of. He's taken out Volkanovski. He's taken out Max Holloway. Those guys, you can't really get much better than that. He took out Charles Oliveira. That was a test at 155, but now he needs somebody even harder. And that's one of these fights we're talking about is Paddy Pimblett. That's a super fun fight. I get it. It's big rivalry, but if we're all being honest, Paddy Pimblett doesn't stand a chance. And Ilia Topuria needs an actual tough test. The only person you can really say at 155 that would give him a tough test is Arman Tsarukyan. And that doesn't even seem like a possibility right now, the way they're blacklisting this guy. So what Ilia Topuria needs to do is either fight Islam Makhachev, wait out for that. If Islam Makhachev loses against JDM, there's your 155 fight right there. If Islam Makhachev wins, go up to 170 and fight Islam. Because there's really no other meaningful fight for Ilia Topuria that would be a tough test for him other than Arman or Islam Makhachev. But on the topic of Islam Makhachev, what he needs the most is to get adjusted to welterweight. That's a big thing going into this fight that I'm actually worried for Islam Makhachev. I know he's a big lightweight, but welterweight is a 15-pound jump. And Islam Makhachev's decently tall and lengthy for lightweight, but guys like JDM are bigger than Islam Makhachev. And JDM's not even really considered that big of a welterweight. You have guys like Shavkat who are massive. Ian Gary's very big. So when Islam Makhachev moves up to welterweight, he's no longer going to have any size advantage with pretty much any contender. And I don't like the fact of him just not cutting weight, not cutting water. I think he should try to put on a little bit of size as well. What he's going to rely on is his wrestling to win these fights. And I think the strength will help to hold JDM down, because I think we can all agree on this at this point. If Islam Makhachev does not hold JDM down, he's going to lose this fight. He's not beating JDM on the feet. He's not beating any of these welterweight guys on the feet like Shavkat or Ian Gary. They're just too rangy. Islam Makhachev kind of struggles with rangier opponents. He needs to use that wrestling. He needs to get bigger, because I think that's his only chance to become a welterweight champion. But with all this talk about Ilia Topuria's next title fight against Paddy Pimblett, I think the biggest thing Paddy Pimblett needs is to not get this title shot. I can understand why the UFC would want to make this. Paddy Pimblett, if he fights a guy like Arman Tsarukyan for a #1 contenders fight, he's probably going to lose that fight. And then there goes your chance at a title shot with your biggest star at lightweight, Paddy Pimblett. If you give him a title shot against Ilia Topuria right now, you are 100% killing all of Paddy Pimblett's hype after that fight. You're going to have a good fight in the short term. It's going to be a big fight, Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria. But afterwards, after he gets knocked out cold by Ilia Topuria, he's going to lose so much hype. I think it would be better to give Paddy Pimblett a fight like Justin Gaethje. I don't think Justin Gaethje would ever take that fight the way he's talking about, if I don't get a title shot, I'm going to retire. But that's the type of fight Paddy Pimblett needs. He needs to fight someone better than Chandler, but not as good as Arman Tsarukyan to get him adjusted. I think it's a big jump for Paddy Pimblett to get into a title shot right now. And if he does beat a guy like Justin Gaethje, or he beats maybe Charles Oliveira or Max Holloway, I don't know what his fight is next, that would build up crazy hype. And then he would actually be a deserving contender who people might actually consider able to beat Ilia Topuria. Not right now though, not after beating a guy like Chandler. It's just off the table. I think he needs another fight. Merab's pretty much beaten every single person at bantamweight, either as a champion or on his way up to becoming champion. The only guy that's left is Corey Sandhagen, which is happening in a couple of months. I think we all know what's going to happen with that fight. And I think the biggest thing Merab needs now and after that fight especially is a super fight. He's taken out every single person at bantamweight. I know he doesn't want to go up to 145 and fight Volk. Who else is for Merab? They could do a super fight against him and Pantoja, but I think it would be more exciting to see Merab go up than Merab fight a 125 pounder. If he's destroying all these 135ers, literally Hall of Fame level fighters like Piotr Jan, Sean O'Malley, Henry Cejudo, what do you think he's going to do to a 125 pounder? Pantoja's good, but he ain't that good. I think the jump is too big for Pantoja to go up to 135. I think the biggest thing Merab needs to do is just get over it and go up to 145, because after these performances he's having, I used to think that Merab could never even have a chance of beating Volkanovski, but the performances Merab is putting putting on right now against all these contenders, I feel like there's actually a chance, and I think that would be a massive fight to make. Another fight that just got announced recently was Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think Pereira's gonna win this fight, and also I don't think Pereira should have even taken this fight. I think the best move for Pereira right now, and the thing that he needs to do the most, is to move up to heavyweight. We've seen those Instagram posts of him being like 242 or 245 or something. This guy's going up in weight. He's getting older. I think it's the perfect time for him to go up to heavyweight. In the situation he's in right now, the fight that he has booked, no matter win or lose, I think he should still go up to heavyweight. If he beats Ankalaev, I think we would much rather see him fight Tom Aspinall for a third belt than fight a trilogy match against Ankalaev. I mean, let's be real. His fight against Tom Aspinall would probably be the biggest fight next to Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. But if he loses as well, I think he should go up to heavyweight, because a guy like Alex Pereira is too big of a star for us to just see him linger around light heavyweight and become a contender, fighting other contenders. I think he should try something new the same way he did when he was a middleweight and lost to Adesanya. I think he should go up a weight class, fight a contender. There's good matchups for him too. If Gane loses to Tom Aspinall and Alex Pereira loses to Ankalaev, have Alex Pereira go up to heavyweight and fight Gane. That's a fight everybody's talked about. And if he wins that, then he's fighting Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall has another contender. It's a win-win. Also, the fact that Pereira's getting older, and the main issue we've been seeing with him, especially in his fight with Ankalaev, is the fact that Ankalaev was too quick for Pereira. Well, if he moves up to heavyweight, they're like fucking 75% slower. So I think he solved that issue right there, and I think he could have a lot of success at heavyweight. I think right now, Volkanovski's probably the #1 champion that you can really say there's nothing wrong with. You know, making this video, I don't really even know what Alexander Volkanovski needs right now, other than to be younger. The only issue really that people are talking about with Volk is the fact that how much longer can he do this? He's like 36 years old, I think, at least. What happens when he takes on these contenders like Movsar and Silva? The more and more time goes on, the less of a chance he has in those fights. I think the only thing we can really talk about and what Volkanovski needs is to get younger, which he can't do. The next pay-per-view we have is Khamzat Chimaev versus DDP, probably the most anticipated fight for a while. This is like a true #1 contender versus champion fight, and this #1 contender has been one of the biggest stars and one of the most anticipated people to have a title shot ever. And what Khamzat needs the most right now is to win that belt, because dude, if he does not beat Dricus Du Plessis, it's going to be a huge letdown for everybody that's been watching Khamzat since 2020, who thought he would be like a triple champ back when he was knocking people out with one punch during COVID. And at that point, like, we don't even know if Khamzat will continue fighting. There's rumors that if he wins the belt, he's just going to retire. I think if he loses against DDP, I think there's even more of a chance that he retires. And even if he doesn't, he's not going to fight for like another year or two. If he's champion, at least he will be forced to fight somewhat actively. And also there's a lot of matchups with Khamzat. And if he beats DDP by finish in the first or second round, we probably have the new biggest star in the UFC. But what about Dricus Du Plessis? I think what he needs the most, which makes this fight so interesting, is a win over Khamzat. I think both these guys need to win this fight more than anything in their career right now, because if DDP beats Khamzat Chimaev, I'm calling him the middleweight GOAT. I think that's one of the most impressive wins in modern times. Khamzat Chimaev is one of the toughest contenders that any champion's ever faced, one of the most scary, intimidating contenders. If he can beat Khamzat, he can beat the rest of all these middleweights, bro. And I think that's what he needs the most, because if he loses against Khamzat, then he may never become champion again. You're going to have Khamzat at the top. If Khamzat finishes him in the first round, then he's not going to get a rematch. Now you have all these contenders passing up, and it's just going to be less likely that he wins that belt back, especially with Khamzat being the champion. Up a weight class, we have Ankalaev next, and what he needs the most, especially going into this fight with Alex Pereira, is to actually go for finishes and stop trying to play it safe. I think that's really the biggest thing holding Ankalaev back. Maybe not in terms of just being a good fighter, but mostly being a likable and entertaining fighter, because a lot of people don't like Ankalaev right now. They don't like the fact that he beat Pereira. They don't like the fact that when he was up in the fight, when he just rocked Alex Pereira in the round previously, the next round he goes out there and clinches with him for pretty much the entire round. That's just not enjoyable. That took all the hype while that fight was going on. Going into this next fight against Pereira, if he hurts Pereira, he needs to step on the gas and get that finish, because if he finishes Pereira, people are actually going to start to really like him. He has the skills to beat Alex Pereira. We all know that. He's younger, he's quicker. If he gets a finish, his fights would be a lot more anticipated. That Yuri fight would be even more hype. The fact that he just knocked out Pereira. Ankalaev has the ability to finish people. He has crazy power. He's knocked out people before. If he goes for those finishes, he has the ability to become a top-level finisher like Alex Pereira was. Arman Tsarukyan's probably in one of the toughest positions of any UFC fighter right now. He's pretty much blacklisted from fighting a top-level contender or even getting a title shot. And this is a guy who was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev in January. He pulled out of that fight because of a weight cut, and now the UFC absolutely hates his guts and wants to get revenge on him by making him climb up the entire rankings again. I really think that's what the UFC is trying to do. They're trying to make him start from number 15 ranked and work his way back up. That's how pissed off they are. And I think a main reason they're doing it as well is because Arman's not that big of a draw. If this was somebody like Paddy Pimblett, they would give him a million title shots, or a guy like O'Malley. And what Arman Tsarukyan needs to do right now is just accept the fact that the UFC fucking hates him and fight some contenders, dude, and get this out of the way, because right now it just seems like he's trying to sit on the sidelines and get in the UFC's good graces by, you know, being a backup fighter, but I don't think that's going to do the trick. And I think he really needs to just get some wins under his belt again, because the UFC is literally just never going to give him a title shot. I feel like that's really what's going to happen, is if he just sits around like this for years and years, well, first of all, he's wasting his prime, and then he's going to have less of an opportunity than he had before. If he waits another year before he fights, then he's going to maybe have to fight another person before he gets a title shot. Right now, if he just fights a decent contender that the UFC gives him, he can get a title shot by next year. I'm telling you, he needs to do something, because I don't think the UFC is ever going to give him a title shot. After that loss against Ilia Topuria, I think it's time to accept the fact that Charles Oliveira is never going to be able to fight for the title again. I think the best days of Charles Oliveira are over, and with guys like Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev and even Arman Tsarukyan, I don't think Charles Oliveira should be fighting for a title. I just don't think he has the ability to become a champion again. I think the smartest move in his career and what he needs to do is to do these fun fights, these fights that you see Dustin Poirier do, these fights you see Justin Gaethje do, or Chandler do. Fight the fan favorites, right? Charles Oliveira's next fight should be Max Holloway. They both don't deserve a title shot. They both got smoked by Topuria. No one wants to see the rematch. But they're also too big of a star to be fighting guys that are ranked number 11 who are no names. And for Max Holloway, the same goes, right? Don't fight Ilia Topuria. I know he's calling for that title shot against Topuria. I get it. He got beat. He wants to get that fight back. Totally understandable, but he's not going to win the fight. He's just not. And that's just a waste of everybody's time, because if he gets knocked out again, that doesn't do much for Ilia Topuria. It's another title defense, it's another name in the books, but it's not one of these big wins like Arman Tsarukyan or Islam Makhachev. Those are the fights that Topuria needs now. He needs to keep going up in trajectory in his career, and Max Holloway right now needs to prove himself more at 155. Dustin Poirier is a big challenge, but it was a striking battle. What happens when he fights Oliveira, who might take it to the ground? That's a great fight for Holloway as well, and I think he should pump the brakes on going for a title shot. Sean O'Malley probably had the most disappointing year out of every single UFC fighter right now, and it's mainly because of the fact that he got an undeserved title shot that everybody was pissed about, and then to top it off, he didn't even win the fight. He didn't even have a close fight like the first one. He got dominated. He got submitted early in the fight, and everyone's calling him, you know, an industry plant, Dana White privilege, which is true, and what he needs the most is to beat those allegations and to actually become a better fighter and get another title shot or get another big fight based off of merit instead of based off of hype. And once he does that, then people will start to like him more. Then people will be more excited about him being in a title shot or a big fight. What he needs the most right now to do is to take time off and actually get better. The problem with him right now isn't really size, to be honest. It's not his striking at all. I think it's the fact that he is getting dominated in the grappling, and I think he needs to take even more time off and train if he wants to be in high profile fights. If he wants fun fights, then just keep fighting. Fight guys like Jan, or go up to featherweight and try to have some like rematch against Aljo or something like that. Movsar is kind of in a similar situation as Arman Tsarukyan. He's one of these big bad contenders that are grapplers who don't have most entertaining style, especially compared to guys like Diego Lopez, Gene Silva, or Ilia Topuria, and the UFC is scared of them becoming champion. And I think what's happening to Movsar right now is the same thing that's happening to Arman Tsarukyan, except Movsar, I think, is getting even more of the short end of the stick, because what has he even done to deserve not getting a title shot? He had a close fight against Aljamain Sterling. Does that mean he just can't get a title shot after that win? I mean, a win's a win. And what he needs the most is to get an actual title shot against Volk. That's the fight everyone wants to see, and it's not like there's any better fight for Volk right now. It's not like, you know, Ilia Topuria can fight Paddy Pimblett, which is kind of a bullshit fight, but it It's going to bring in the numbers. Volkanovski doesn't have another big fight. Yair is not a star. He's not going to bring in any pay-per-view points. Movsar is going to bring in more pay-per-views than Yair. So why not make that fight? I think Movsar needs to get his title shot. Gene Silva is one of the fighters at featherweight right now that people are actually considering a possible future champion because of the way he fights. He proved his takedown defense. He has crazy knockout power and crazy striking. And he has a fight booked against Diego Lopez. What he needs most is to finish Diego Lopez. Get a spectacular finish. Or just at the very least win the fight. Because if he beats Diego Lopez, you bet your ass he's getting a title shot against Volk or whoever the champion is at that time. There's much of more of a case if Gene Silva wins that fight than if Diego Lopez wins that fight, because the rematch between Diego Lopez and Volk is not as hype as a fresh contender like Gene Silva, especially if he knocks out Diego Lopez or gets a win over Diego Lopez. That's what Gene Silva needs the most, is to get that win against Diego Lopez and hopefully get the win by finish. Justin Gaethje, I'm gonna be honest, what he needs to do is just retire or fight actual contenders. He cannot get a title shot. I get he thinks he deserves a title shot because he got some bullshit win against Fiziev, but let's be real, he had 2 title shots and he absolutely crumbled in those situations. What makes him think that he's gonna have a better chance against Topuria? Seriously, like, he got absolutely embarrassed by Khabib, one of the worst performances by Justin Gaethje ever, and he got finished in the first round by Charles Oliveira. And this guy thinks he's gonna beat Topuria? No, get this guy out of the title shot. That's literally just a random fight for Topuria that he's just gonna finish Justin Gaethje in the first round, and no one's gonna care. Really, no one's gonna care. It's gonna do nothing for Topuria's legacy. Topuria could fight a homeless man, and it would mean more for his legacy than a fight against Justin Gaethje right now. He needs to fight a contender like Paddy Pimblett, or he needs to just get out of the UFC. Chandler right now is in a pretty bad situation because he lost against Paddy Pimblett, who is very low ranked at the time, around 15 ranked. And now Chandler's not really in a position to be fighting guys like Justin Gaethje or Charles Oliveira, even though he shouldn't have been fighting Charles Oliveira in the first place. It's kind of a little bit undeserved. Now they cannot make a fight with Chandler and a top contender. So now he's really forced to be fighting these guys no one really knows about, these lower ranked contenders. And he's kind of in a bad spot because if he loses against one of those contenders or 2 of them, the UFC might just drop him. And even if he wins, then if it's not by knockout, he's just going to lose so much of his hype. The only thing saving Chandler's career right now and what he needs to do is fight Conor McGregor at the White House. That's literally the only thing saving Chandler's career, is get a fight like that. Get a big fight because, you know, Chandler's low ranked. That's a perfect fight for McGregor. And for Chandler, if he wins that fight at the White House, or, you know, if he just fights McGregor in general, that's a huge win for him. And that's a huge paycheck as well. That's really all that Chandler can do right now. He's out of the title picture. He should just fight big names. Going into this fight with Islam Makhachev, the biggest thing JDM needs to do is just get his name out there. JDM is on the boring side of fighters. His fighting style is not boring, but I'm talking personality-wise. I think it's especially due to the fact that he got a win off Gilbert Burns, which was kind of controversial. Not the way it ended, but what happened. He got taken down by Gilbert Burns. And then he gets thrown into the title picture, which wasn't really deserved. He didn't get a win against a top contender that he was supposed to fight like Leon Edwards. He just went against Bilal in a replacement, and he won the fight and he deserved the win. But the fact that he wasn't a hyped up contender or somebody people were talking about, that's why no one really knows about him. And a good performance over Islam Makhachev, maybe a little bit of trash talk back and forth between him and Islam Makhachev, a little bit of intensity, that's what will help JDM in terms of being a bigger star. If he beats Islam Makhachev regardless, he'll be a decently big star just off the fact that he beat pound for pound number 2, pound for pound number 1. That's the big thing JDM needs right now. Shavkat Rakhmonov, apparently, I think what I've heard on social media is he's waiting out for a title shot. I think that's the worst thing he can do, and I think what he needs to do the most is to fight a contender and actually prove himself again, because he's still undefeated, but that fight against Ian Gary took a massive hit to, you know, what people were thinking of him. People before that thought that Shavkat would be a double champion. Now, after that Ian Gary performance, I think the hype on Shavkat Rakhmonov has died down a lot, and I think he needs to get that back before he gets into a title shot, because if he gets a finish over a contender, like if he fights someone like Sean Brady or Usman, and then he fights a winner of JDM versus Islam, that will be a lot more hype, and I think that's what he needs to do, because he needs to prove himself after that Ian Gary performance, because that fight was razor thin. He doesn't seem as big of a contender as he once was. Sean Strickland's in the news for some things outside of the octagon. Well, not really. And I think what he needs to do the most is use that energy that he brought in that little scuffle to his actual UFC fights, because the way Sean Strickland talks, you would think he fights like Khamzat or like Topuria or something like that, but He fights the complete opposite way. He has 2 moves in his toolkit, and he throws about 2 strikes per round. He needs to fix that. That's really the only thing he can do to save his career right now, because he's lost tons of his fans. He's lost tons of his hype. And I think he's going to be booked against Adesanya next. What he needs to do the most is to get a dominant performance over Adesanya. He needs to hurt Adesanya. He needs to actually damage him, throw good output and trade, or catch him or put him away. That's what Sean Strickland needs to do right now, because he could really redeem himself and become a guy that could be fighting for a title or a #1 contender spot. But what Adesanya needs to do the most is get a win against Strickland, because if not, people are going to be talking about Adesanya retiring. That's what the conversation is going to be. It's Adesanya's washed. He needs to retire because he's going to end up like Anderson Silva, basically losing to all these contenders. Especially a guy like Sean Strickland. I think that's a totally winnable fight for Adesanya. I really do. If he gets a finish over Strickland, he's going to be back into the picture. Trust me, a guy like Adesanya getting a finish, he's going to be fighting big names next. He would probably get a title shot. If Khamzat Chimaev beat Dricus Du Plessis and Adesanya finished Strickland like a good finish, you know what's going to happen next. That's what Adesanya needs to do. But lastly, we have Jon Jones. And apparently he's back in the testing pool and that he's training for a fight. I think that's complete bullshit. I think the only way he's going to come back is if Gane beats Aspinall. I think that's what he's waiting on. Gane beats Aspinall. First of all, he's going to rub it in everybody's face. But then he's going to try to come back and win the belt off Gane, because he knows he can't do it against Aspinall. He's too scared of the chance that he gets knocked out. What I think Jon Jones needs to do is only come back if he's going to fight Aspinall, which he won't do. So just retire. Because first of all, Jon Jones is not that entertaining of a fighter. So it's not hype if he comes back against a contender. The only reason people are interested in Jones is because he has that greatest of all time aura, undefeated aura. No one cares about his entertaining style because it's not entertaining. He throws 1-punch combinations. He has the same striking bag as Strickland, okay? And he throws a couple spinning back kicks. But he's not that entertaining of a fighter. We don't care about him fighting contenders. We want to see him fight the best because that's what he claims he is. And he won't do that. But if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.